people think. And I can agree with some of his statements without, of course, all of the derogatory lingo. But I say that to say this: the responsibility first lies in the family, the values, the virtues. The cornerstones of how they. So I kind of see where the lack of taking on that responsibility, that language is used. But I also say to myself, I'm Eric first.
Yeah, he doesn't represent us.
He doesn't represent me.
So how do we, with all the negativity in today's society, how do we ensure that we're perceived, like you mentioned, how do we ensure that we're perceived the way we want to be seen?
I I determine who I am. You don't determine who I am.
That's right.
You can look at me by color if you want to. I don't care. The integrity that I have is for me. I live by the principles that my parents taught me in God. And as long as I follow those principles, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I represent black people by how I act, my actions myself.
Okay, I like that.
Determine who I am. We'll also look at them and determine who they are also. Because I represent me by my Christian upbringing and my Christian belief. That's what I am.
See, and to that point, I had a class not too long ago with some in the NAACP youth group, and we started asking them about who civil rights leaders were, and they named a lot of them from the past. But if you ask the question of who those same leaders are today, they can't answer the question.
I've seen that.
You can't identify someone who's actually fighting that battle now. They say Al Sharpton, that did come up, and I said, okay, name another one. The problem is, or my belief is that, there is a place where local local people or local leaders should have a platform to where we're attracting youth, young people, mentees to what we're doing. The problem is it's so easy to see the knuckleheads on TV. It's so easy to see the knuckleheads on the news. And when those knuckleheads are making money, it's so appealing to see that. So that integrity and that character that you display, it's a great example, but it's not always attractive to the youth that we're trying to bring when they see all this other stuff out there. We talked a little while ago off camera about the nature of this youth, the youth we have today, where it's instant gratification and everything has to be fast, and why does it take so long to be successful and things like that. Well, when they see I can start a YouTube channel and get a bunch of people to follow me and I can get rich quick, that's what the path they take, as opposed to going to school, putting in time, working hard and things like that, and maybe one day you'll be successful. So how do we address that dynamic right there? They see something shiny, precious, and it cracks.
No, let's
talked about that.
We were just talking about that.
So I've seen this picture, and y'all may have seen it too, where there's two sides to the picture, and I'll try to describe it, right? One side is where you see a black man, and he's pulling the other guy down. And then on the other side of the picture, you see a white man, and he's pushing the other guy up. We don't stand together. We're fighting against each other.
That's
Come
nothing new. It's been that way for years.
How long does it stay in our community?
Less than one cycle?
Less than an hour.
Well, $1.
Oh, it's not even an hour.
Yeah, it's not in an hour. Yeah.
We don't have economic power base. We don't have majority. So those are things that we don't have. So we don't effectively negotiate and engage politics in a manner that's successful.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to say we can't, because just as he said, if we were to stand together, if we were to come together, we have resources. He just said to me a few minutes ago, we have come from slavery to success, a measure of success, in the shortest time of any people ever.
People on this planet.
Exactly. And in that level of success, a question I ask myself constantly, as I'm starting to achieve, what am I doing with that success?
Mm-hmm.
How am I using that resource? Who am I bettering? Who am I helping? What is my target? I continue to ask those questions to try and keep me focused on moving forward.
Okay, so y'all are here. So what is what is our worst fear? What is your worst fear as a black man? My worst fear right now is not so much for my life, but it's my 19-year-old son having to travel from here to his college and what may happen in that travel time. If he stops at a McDonald's or a restaurant to get some food, doing the right thing, what could he come across? Or what could somebody else say to him and he's doing the right thing? That's my biggest fear. My fear is, did I not set the right legacy? Did I not show the right values? Did I not show did I show the right fight? Did I put him in a network around the right people? That's my biggest fear, is not so much my life, because I'm gonna give my life to my purpose. But did I, as a black man, a black father, set the right example for my son?
You, I believe, did. But our generation did. When we came in the military, I had to drive all the way from Pennsylvania to Texas and couldn't stop at a hotel.
Yeah.
Understand?
Yeah.
I couldn't go into a store. I couldn't use the bathroom. Understand? Because that's the kind of country that we had at that time. But I'm here, and it got me through by prayer, and that's what the elderly people did. They didn't understand that they didn't have the intelligence that we have today, but they carried us through by prayer. We better do the same thing for ours. We better put them in that channel that God can protect them, or certain things couldn't happen. Listen, our generation created the traffic light. We created the internet. We were there when they went to the moon. We did the air conditioner. There's so many things that we had, but we never recognized, to the extent that we should, what black people gave to this country. They talk about Reformation. Listen, Eric Gardner. If Eric Gardner was a Jew, what did you think would be happening? They'd be all over the place. They'd be doing all kinds of things. What we doing, sitting back doing this, because they made a decision for him.
So it goes back to their value.
Yes, sir.
Goes back to the value. Make sure I'm looking at the cameras too. It goes back to the value. And so you was gonna say something,
No,
or did Harry say it?
No,
See,
I think
love
he said
it.
it. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
It goes to the very core of what conversation do we have? We're all fathers, uncles, brothers. We may not have biological children, but we have either raised them. We done talked to our nieces, nephews. We done grabbed somebody at the church, at the corner, at the store. What conversation do we have? Or are we having a conversation?
Well, I think unfortunately that the conversations happen. They're not. The conversation is provoked by. It's a domino effect. Something has to happen on one side for the conversation to begin. We never talk about these things when everything's great.
Are we scared to have a
You
conversation?
know, I don't think we're scared to have the conversation. I just think that sometimes, because new things come up,
Mhm.
they become thought provoking.
Okay.
When before that, they're really not there. When you think that you've seen it all and heard all, here comes something else.
Yeah.
And up in DC is
Yeah.
a prime example of
Yeah.
it. Just when you think nothing else can fall out of this fool's mouth, something else happens. So, same thing. I think as you know, bigotry recreates itself. It disguises itself in new forms. And so, just when you think you were addressing it one way, and okay, look, son, when you're in a car and you get stopped by an officer, turn the vehicle off, roll the window down,
Turn on
do
the
not
lights,
grab, turn on the lights, put
Keep
your hands on the
up
steering
here.
wheel, do not reach for anything, registration, anything at all. Do you think Philando Castile was told the same thing? He had a license
I
firearm.
was just finna go there. Yeah.
He said he had a license. He said he had a concealed weapon. He said he had a permit. And then when the officer told him, okay, you can reach for your credentials, he
This
shot.
backyard discussion, babe. We got
I
the
mean,
ice cream
so-
man going by. Hey, this backyard discussion.
So once again, if his father was here, what would his father say?
Right.
Probably the same things that we're saying.
Yeah.
It's an agenda. And sometimes because the agenda is a moving target, We don't know what to tell our sons next because we don't know what's going to happen next until it happens.
Well, the flip side
and that's
of
the
that
fear.
is they could do everything
Right.
and
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
have that outcome.
Yeah.
There are some of those cases where they did nothing wrong,
That's right.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but they still ended up.
Yeah.
I asked this next question I'm going to, and I'm going to say it this way, and I know this is going to get a lot of y'all riled up. It's going to get us hot, you know. But these are the kind of conversations and dialogue we need to have, because if, like I say, if we're not talking about it, if we're not doing something about it, if we're not in front of it, they're going to paint the narrative like they want to paint it. We need to be in front of it and paint the narrative like we want it to be. And so the question is, do we believe, do we think, when it comes to law enforcement, and these arrests and these stops, I think we've alluded to it a little bit earlier in some of the dialogue, but are there different approaches to different ethnicities when it comes to apprehensions? And I'm gonna give you an example. We saw where a killer killed a bunch of folks. They took him to McDonald's and got him something to eat. Okay? And then we see where this man has some untaxed cigarettes, and he's choked to death and no charges. So I mean, we see it, you know, but are we doing something about it? Are we, like you said, are we just sitting down? Are we collectively taking all of our resources, all of our minds and our smarts and our faith and our hope? What are we doing?
Every one of us have families. Right? We know that our children have to go out every day to school and to other places. Listen, when my grandchildren come to my house, there's not a day that they come that not before they go to bed, grab our hands and we pray, and I have them to pray with us. I'm covering them for whatever happens in the world. The weapons of our warfare are not worldly. We've got the listen, the power in this world is that the white man. He got the power. Listen, but we've got a power that exceeds him, and that's God. And so the weapons of our warfare are not worldly, but mighty through God to the tearing down of strongholds and imaginations, and bring it into captivity every thought that tries to exalt itself for the glory of God. That's what our parents did for us, and it carried us through because I'm here. And that's what we have to do for them. And we have to do it more intensely now.
Yeah.
Because the battles are really intense. And they're getting racist.
It is. And the one thing that I've noticed, even in the area that we live in, and I saw it definitely when I was down in the Fredericksburg area, they constantly rezoned the schools. They constantly rezoned the schools in order to keep the population at a certain point to where people couldn't get elected. And so that's, you know, and I asked my son this question at our at the empowerment conference we had.
Boys to men.
Yeah, I asked him the question. I said, what is it today that you see, and it goes back to what you alluded to earlier, when you asked them that national level leader, what do they see? You know, what's the place of NAACP? What's the place of they don't know, you know? Are they silent? You know?
But look at us.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I don't know about you guys, but I live in Del City. I know one black business in Del City. Now, I've been here about 40 years, and I know one black business. If you take that to Woodbridge, I might know two. That's three. Spanish Nation has moved here just recently, within the last 10 to 15 years, 10 years, right? But you can go in a whole block,
Yeah.
has businesses on it. But we've contributed to this country outstandingly. But we don't take that kind of attitude to own our own and have our children have those kinds of things, examples that.
If I may, I want to go back and say address something that you said earlier, especially about, and again, we talked about this during the Boys to Men conference, and that is, I never want to come off from a place of us versus them, black versus white. There's good and bad in every group, no matter what group it is, and particularly with the police officers. You know, the sheriff's department here. You asked, what are we doing and how do we address these things? My nonprofit is partnered with the sheriff's department, and even later on today at 4:30 this afternoon, they're going into one of the minority environments to have a block party to have awareness and build relationships between the sheriff's department and the communities we're in. There are great people on the police force, but there are bad apples in every bunch. And the thing is we talked about the media earlier. The media will take that incident, which is a small fraction of the great things that are happening, and they spin that up to keep us in a state of anger and into a place where we are in chaos, because ruling through chaos is a measure or a strategic way to lead. Keep us thinking that we can't or we won't or you don't have, and you start to adapt that as a mindset, where the truth of the matter is there is still a lot that we need to address, but there is still so much that we've accomplished, we've come a long way. We haven't arrived, but we're moving. And the thing is how do we expedite, how do we address, how do we support, how do we keep those good things going? Because you're always going to have the ASAP Rockies out there talking. But what are we saying? How are we getting our message out? How are we not letting that message speak for us?
Well, that message sometimes, like back to what I was saying about an agenda. So if the agenda is there and you don't know what the agenda is, then you need to become part of whatever organization,
Yep.
whatever in that community sets that agenda, to become proactive instead of reactive. If you're in local politics, if you have a company and you're supporting the local sheriff's department, if you're talking about real estate and you happen to be a member of a board member, and all of these other things, you know what's going on in your community, so you know what the agenda is. Where sometimes, just like the school thing, the rezoning of the schools, it was a surprise to you and I when we saw that and how they turned corners. Why? It was a surprise because we weren't part of that effort. And so if we become part of more efforts in the community in which we live, then these things are not surprises to us, and we can help try to steer them in the direction where we're inclusive in the decision instead of excluding. Sometimes it's not even about being excluded, it's about not knowing.
Just get involved.
Get involved
Just
so
get
that you
involved.
know what's coming before it gets there.
Yes, I love that.
Black people's problem is the police. And I know there's some good and some bad. But black people's problem with the police is that they are supposed to stand for justice. If anybody knows what justice is, they should know it. When one of their officers do bad, I never see them stand up for what they know is right. I never see the prosecutors stand up for what they know is right. He did a wrong thing. He is under the same judicial system as I under, and the same judgment that judged me should judge him.
Yes, I do it. When you continuously see people getting away with what we feel is obvious wrong, that's deflating. It's demoralizing. I absolutely agree with that statement. At the same time, I do feel like in some areas, we, instead of teaching respect or respect of authority, we teach fear. And in teaching that fear, our kids or our youth, our people are operating in a state of fear rather than respect. And I've seen this where very defiant people are if you engage, I'll give you this example. If I'm a cop, I'm going to equate this to me as a parent. If I told my child to do something and they came at me the way some of these kids come at the cops, I'd be a little vexed too. I'd be a little vexed too. So what I'm saying, and this, I'm not giving them an alibi. What I'm saying is we need to start with ourselves. We talked about earlier teaching the kid, keep your hands on the wheel, roll the windows down. But look how many don't have that conversation because they got nobody to have that conversation with. Or I've seen right down here dealing with some of the kids that we work with at the alternative school where everything is this other person's fault. I did nothing wrong, and this whole situation is something. And I think it comes back to what the gentleman said earlier. The home situation and the lack of values and character development and things like that. I think we have some kids that are out there trying to figure it out on their own. They're just out there.
Okay.
They fall into difficult situations.
Right, I'm glad you said that. So, when we talk about finances, we talk about credit, we talk about education, we talk about all of this, what did we remember seeing? You know, did our grandparents, or when did our kids, when did they see how to set up a 401k or how to invest? Or did we just tell them, hey, you got to save some of your money? We told them what to do. Or are we telling them what to do, or are we showing them? You know, are we showing them how to buy businesses? You know, we talked about this once before. You know, are we one of the mentoring programs that I do down at Freedom Middle School is just something so small. I went out and bought about 30 ties. We talked about this too.
That's right.
Ties and bow ties. Went to store and bought them, cheap ties and bow ties. We went in there on our particular day. And we showed them how to tie ties. These young men went crazy. They loved it.
Yep.
And they were middle schoolers. They were 6th, 7th, 8th graders. So in my brain, are we waiting too late? Are they not getting it at 3 years old or 4 years old or 5? They're just learning how to tie a tie. So I take that just as that example, but when it comes just to the tie, or if you look at that from a financial perspective, are we not showing them to keep the dollar in our community?
Well, I think when we have those conversations, you know, the 401k investing, things of that nature, and I will piggyback on the tie experience. Those young men probably were excited about the tie because of what the tie represented. It represented someone important.
Yeah.
It represented their grandfather, their father, business, someone who's going to be taught with respect and things of that nature. So when we start talking about the conversation of finances, I think it's a bit of the same. You explain to them the importance of it,
Mm-hmm.
or you dive into a classroom discussion about it. Because if a person doesn't understand what the value is to them, you know, especially this generation,
Mm-hmm.
explain, okay, look, we're going to get you paid. You know, you can have the material things if you want. You can have the security for your family if you want. You can do all of these things with this type of investment, and I'm going to show you how to get there.
But it's
Or
hard
we
to
showing
teach
them,
what you
right.
don't know.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's hard to
yeah.
teach what you don't know.
Right.
And we got a lot of people that don't know raising kids that don't know.
Right.
So that's why we do have these mentorship programs
Sure.
where we do go out to these schools and we try to fill in that gap in those neighborhoods so that they can have access to someone who has done it, knows how to
Right.
do it, and can teach them how to do it.
Fear is a positive, powerful weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Says God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Listen, my grandchildren can walk in the house, and they'll be there playing. You walk up to her and say, and they just. These children are afraid. You talk to some of them young men, they don't believe that they're going to get to 30 years old. I talk to many of them. They don't think they're going to make it to 30 years old. So they are disregarding things now in their mind.
Going back to that
When
value.
you teach them the pattern of things now, they disregard it. My grandchild told me this. I asked one of them, what do you want to be? And one little one said, didn't get to that stage yet, because your life is 7 stages.
Mhm.
Didn't get that stage yet. She said, I want to be a doctor. I asked the one that's 11 years old. She said, all I want to do is get out of here at 11 years old.
Mhm.
And she's very smart, but she'll disregard everything that is not social
Mm.
See, even back to the point of whether we like it or not, we are always teaching something. We're either teaching how to or how not
yeah.
to. One
We
or
gave
the
them a
other.
blueprint.
Exactly. And so when it comes to critical thinking and smart kids, you'll have some kids that will fall to the line of, I see that, I don't want to repeat that, and they'll go in another way. But you'll also have kids that say, well, that's what my daddy did, and I'm going to do the same thing. There comes a place where I don't like, or I don't allow children to or youth to put themselves in a box based on their situations because you have a choice.
Yes.
You have a choice, and you can choose not to do or accept that. But some youth don't feel like they have a choice.
Yeah, I can agree
Okay.
with that.
Okay. We can go down this whole road. But my question is, at what point did we start allowing? Now, this is one thing I hate. I hate seeing a young man with his pants down, with his pants down up on his butt. When did that become acceptable?
It became acceptable when adults feared correcting them.
I like that.
Mm.
So
When we feared correcting them, it became acceptable.
Okay.
You know, so and that's because of the level, because you don't know what you're going to get.
Okay.
So you correct Pookie, Ray, whoever it is, and hey, you don't know if they're going to turn around, and you don't know what they're going to do. I mean, you got kids that walk around playing a knockout game and just find a senior citizen and knock them upside the head
So what
because
happened?
there's no respect. So
When-
what happened? I think that it goes back to the fear thing. It goes back to fear, and I stand by this, and many people may not agree, but children don't understand respect at a certain age. So you teach them through fear, through consequences. Once they get to an age where they understand respect, then that fear transcends to respect. This is why you don't do it. A 4-year-old doesn't understand why you don't do something
Right.
unless it's going to affect them. If you do this, you're going to get an hour. That's fear. If you do this, I'm going to get you. That's fear. When they get older and that transitions to respect, then the fear is no longer required.
Okay.
So now,
hold
so
on.
now- go ahead.
So you're saying, now I grew up in the time and age where I went and I had to get my own switch.
oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too. Everybody at this table.
too.
I had to get
Fear.
my own
Yeah.
switch.
Fear.
So what you're saying is, and if
Get
the
some
belt-
switches.
Get some switches. Don't get a small one where it broke. So what you're I got that too. So
Taken out of society.
So what you're
Right.
saying is, if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is, once that young man or that young lady is not scared of that whipping anymore,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes, my chest is
Yep.
big, so you can't tell
Check
me nothing.
this out. But check this out.
Yeah.
Check this out. Check this out. In order for the child to fear someone, the person's got to be there.
Oh,
And when you have fractured homes,
Yep.
not
Okay.
broken, they're just fractured.
Okay,
When you have fractured homes and that man is not there to instill that fear in that young man,
that's another topic.
or you've got
This
a
is
you've got a
topic.
mother who's working 3 jobs who's too tired to instill that fear.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
Now it's fractured. So now that lesson gets lost.
But
You
I,
understand where I'm coming from?
I get you.
But to the point of making the correction, I remember one night in the grocery store, man sitting in front of me had his pants hanging off his butt. And it bothered me so much. I tapped him on the shoulder and I just asked him, "Why you got your pants hanging off your butt?"
What did he say?
He wasn't aggressive, but he's like, "Man, why you on me, man? Just leave me alone. Why you asking me questions?" And I'm like, I'm not trying to bother you. I'm just trying to have a conversation with you. I just want to understand.
Right.
And so what ended up happening is my wife tapped me and said, "Leave that boy alone." But I agree with you. There are too many people that won't go have the conversation because they're scared of the reaction. They're scared of what's going to happen. They don't want to do that. And to be honest, I don't blame them. If you look at some of these kids, they will come at you. If you talk to them, they will come at you. So, but at the same time, those of us that will do, continue to do.
Yeah.
Those of us that can, we still should.
And you know something? And my mom would always tell me, she says, there are 2 things that are not for punks. Parenting and love.
I like that.
Okay? So, a lot of adults have become punks.
Yeah, I agree.
What are you willing to do to correct that young man or young woman and leave that mark with them? Where it may not, it may be, they may disrespect you, but it may become a talking point later on when they're sitting around doing whatever. This old dude walked up to me, they told me to pull my pants up. Somebody at that table with them may say, you know something, I've been wanting to tell you to pull
Yeah,
your
you
pants
should have
up.
listened to him.
So it may create some dialogue.
I
You
agree.
know, I mean, I've seen kids throw I saw a kid throw a chicken box out the window in front of Walmart one day. I picked it up and threw it back in their car. And he looked at me, and he thought twice. He was like, okay, this dude crazy,
Yeah.
or
He crazy.
he crazy. And so,
Right.
and I threw it back in the car.
But
they don't do that.
I have found that, okay, first of all, I was talking to a group of young men, and they said it seems as though today parents and people in general talk at them, vice to them.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, it could be some truth. It could be some
But
truth.
it is an inherited thing because our parents talked at us.
Right.
Bingo.
Our parents, we feared our parents, and we did what they said because we feared them. Now we have a smarter, more articulate, more comprehensive set of youth, and they don't necessarily respond to the fear as much as they want to understand. So they want you to have a
'Cause I think they
conversation
do.
with them.
I
agree.
really think they do. I think they do.
Our youth are engaged in at a level that we never were. There's so much information, there's so many avenues, so much media, so much attention that they are engaged on a lot of levels that we never were. So they are, I don't want to say smarter, but they have more information, they have more at their disposal. So for you to talk at them when they can articulate an argument to prove
They
you
can
wrong,
engage with you.
when they can come at you with why that's not true, that's a challenge.
And so when I was younger, as a child, I didn't ask my parents why.
We weren't allowed.
You
Get your
stayed out of
teeth knocked in.
grown
So,
folks conversation.
but, not to say that I rolled out the carpet for my kids when I was raising them, but as a parent, I had to understand that their why is not disrespectful. Now, you may need to pepper it with some things. You don't
Yeah.
come out and say why.
Yeah.
That, can we have a conversation?
Yes.
Yes. Can you explain this to me?
Right.
Where before, okay, you should be seen and not heard. Okay,
Yep.
don't concern me.
Yep.
Lights on, I got food, I'm good. I'm gone.
Exactly.
So with my children, I had to, parenting is, you have to recreate it sometimes because the children aren't going to be the same. They talked about our generation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they crazy.
Yep.
We're talking about, they talked about their generation.
Yep.
Oh, every generation has their own thing. Every parenting style has its own thing, its own challenge. And I think with these children today, we have to parent them before they're parented by society, before they're parented by the phone.
That's right.
So we sit there and, when we were coming up, the thing was, well, when do you have the conversation with your children about sex?
Yep.
Well, I got news for you. If you have it with your child after age probably 7,
They already
today they already know.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah.
They already maybe give you some pointers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They already know. So you have to have that conversation, not because you're a liberal parent, not because you don't understand or value the virtues of virginity and you're not a Christian household. And you have those conversations because that's what's happening when your child is not home.
When they're in school.
When that child's at
Yeah,
school for
yeah.
8 hours a day, okay, that child comes home, does homework, maybe sit at the dinner table if you have a home that's ran like that. So you're getting FaceTime with your kid maybe
Yeah.
2 hours a day,
Yep.
maybe,
Yep.
to try to combat 8 hours of what's going on in everyone else's home.
Yep.
Come
In my
on.
generation, it was do as I say, do,
Yeah,
not as I do.
That's right.
And society and government supported it. Now you can't hit your child.
Yeah.
They call 911 and say, my daddy hit me, dad, you going to jail.
Hey, they better hurry up because they got
Yeah.
a couple minutes because I'm going to get them. And I'm going to go to jail and get out and do another.
So it supports it. And when they look on the internet and those things, they know they're
I'll tell
wise
you what,
enough to
though.
know things nowadays.
Look, my daughter will be very
And-
upset
and-
with me for telling the
and-
story, but
and-
call the police on me.
Yeah.
And when you come to the door, either you're going to take me or take them.
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah.
I don't discipline them, then you're going to say I'm a bad parent,
Right.
and you're going to blame it on me
That's
anyway.
correct. And they're gonna take them anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
But wearing pants is a fad. We had pants with what do you call them?
Bell bottoms.
Bell bottom pants and all that kind of stuff. We went through those same kind of fads, okay? And society supports that. So they think it's all right while we're having problems with it, but they don't see anything wrong.
Well, I remember you had when it first started, and I don't know if a couple of you remember this. You had a national conversation where in certain school areas and neighborhoods they would have no sagging.
Yeah.
Remember
Yes,
that?
yes.
But then you had all these other people that got on board with this parents trying to be the friend instead of being a parent. If
Yeah.
that's how my kid want to dress and they're not disrespecting you or not bothering you, then you leave my child alone. They're not in your school. There's no dress code. You know, as long as it's not inappropriate or it's not revealing, so be it.
You know what the difference was? It started in the ghetto. It was unacceptable. As soon as the white folks started doing it, the same thing,
Became
it
acceptable.
became all right.
Wow.
It was just
So, with all this conversation, how do we change the narrative? How do we get back into to narrative?
Which
And-
narrative?
Of instead of negatives, there's a lot of positives. And there's two people I wanna point out. Vernon here. If you take a moment to, I think the more community involvement. We talked about involvement. We talked about being part of the discussion, being proactive rather than reactive. Tell us about your company, what you do. I was excited when I saw your room. So tell us a little bit about that.
So, G3 Community Services. Initially, when I started it, it was going to be a church, but one of the things that was laid on my heart was that we got a lot of churches, and what I wanted to do was have something where we could meet people where they were, regardless of their religious belief, and meet their needs. I believe that in showing love, it's all encompassing. So showing people love and meeting their needs will have them want to know more about you and follow you than anything else. I don't need to beat them over the head with a Bible. If I meet their needs, they'll want to come back and see how to continue. So we started the nonprofit. My daughter came home one day and just said, I said, "Baby, how was your day?" She said, "Daddy, it was terrible." And I'm like, "What's wrong?" She said, "The boys are bad and they're not listening." And the teacher ran out of the class and she was crying. And, "Daddy, can you come fix it?" And she was in elementary school. So the next morning I got up, I took her to school, I talked to her teacher, and the teacher confirmed that yes, this happened. I said, "May I address your class?" And the teacher said yes. And I said, "This classroom is now mine. And if you disrespect anybody in this classroom, they will call me and you'll have to deal with me." Now, at the time, I was still in the military. I was in uniform. Everything was fine. The next teacher in the class next door said, "Can you come and do that in here?" I said, "Sure." I started to leave the building, went to my car. Before I got to my car, the principal called my cell phone and said, "Can you come back in here? We want you to start a program." And that's how EYM started, Extraordinary Young Men. After Extraordinary Young Men, we started to get requests for the young ladies, character, the same STEM initiatives, and we had to change it from Extraordinary Young Men to Extraordinary Young Minds. And then it started to grow. We're partnered with the Sheriff's Department. We're partnered with Stafford Hospital. We're partnered with Best Buy. We're partnered with several organizations because one of our core fundamentals is together we can do more. The more people you get involved in community type efforts, the more impact you're going to have. They used to, back in our generation, they say it took a community to raise, well, some kind of way we got away from that. And if you say something to somebody else's kid, they'd rather fight you than hear what you got to say. Well, in these environments, we allow the kids to come in, and there are adult mentors. The parents can even come in because maybe they need a mentor. Maybe they're struggling at home. But anything from drones, robotics, coding, we do arts, we do music, we do art classes. We do a lot of things. RC race cars. Currently, we're in 10 schools. We run a pro. As a matter of fact, we have EYM tomorrow down at the Stafford Hospital. If you want to come out and see what we're doing, come on out and see it. But we're very proud. Computers. So I own a cybersecurity and information technology company, G Cubed Enterprises. And one of our challenges is trying to find talent, trying to find people with the capabilities, the skill set to fill the job openings we have. So in being that we know there's a national shortage for these professionals, we came up with a program, a pipeline. So kids will start in EYM, they'll go to what we call the Bridge program. We hire them as an intern, they're in college. We basically bring them in to get experience in these IT, high technical career fields. And then we give them a security clearance. We give them the internship. We follow them through school. We hold them accountable, make sure they're not getting in trouble. And then we hire them. So we have a great internship program right now where some of my staff that are making full-time money, they're young. They're making a great salary because they started young, they stayed involved, we gave them something to focus on. That security clearance, when you know you don't want to lose it, you won't make dumb mistakes. You won't be out there making these foolish mistakes when you know that security clearance is a opportunity. And when you value it, you'll act accordingly. So right from computers, coding, engineering to any software development, web development, we have programs where we're trying to get kids in them as early as possible and get them all the way through a career where we can hire them, and they feel good because they feel like somebody invested in them. We feel good because we invested in youth and we're giving them opportunities.
Changing the narrative. So we're going to bring our cameraman over here because I want him to talk about what he's doing in the community. You got it? So we have Lewis. However you want to stand.
I was just gonna stand next to you.
We have Lewis. Tell us about rites of passage. What is that about?
Well, so about 13 years ago, my father-in-law comes to me and says, "Let me ask you something. How are you going to tell your son he's a man?" And I stopped and thought about it. My son was just born, okay, and I really didn't have the answer. It's my first son. Of course, I have two daughters, but I really didn't have the answer, and he hit me to something. So, you know, a lot of communities have their rites of passage. You know, you have the bar mitzvahs. You have some communities that take their sons hunting. When they're out there, they tell them, "Look, you killed your first deer. You are now a man," and it starts a conversation. And when the young men go home, they feel different. I said, but you know, now more and more, we're seeing in our community that our rites of passage is jail. They'll go to jail. They'll do some time. If they're lucky, they'll do some time in the juvenile detention center. And when they come home, you're now stronger.
Yeah.
You know, we had to figure out how to change that narrative. My father-in-law works in the jail system. He's a probation manager, a supervisor, and a lot of the men that's involved in our rites of passage program came together because they said, "Look, somebody has to do something." We found that a lot of people are talking about it, and the talk is good, but you know, theoretical science and applied science is a different thing.
Right.
You know, so we decided to do applied science. We decided to get together with a bunch of churches in Spotsylvania County and say, "Hey, pastor, hey, church members, let's get together and do something." So what we do is we take these young men out one weekend a year. We're looking to do more of it, but we take these young boys out one weekend a year. We take them camping. In that program, we have fraternities, police officers, a lot of professionals in the community come out and actually talk to these young men. Not just about what they do in their profession, but about what it is to be a man. We teach them how to tie a tie. I love the tying the tie thing. You will be amazed how much tying a tie.
Powerful.
Would just excite them.
I had a mother who, in tears, came to me and explained that her youngest son, who just went through the program, was teaching his father how to tie a tie.
Wow.
That's amazing.
And his father finally got a job that he could be proud of because of the way they believe, because of the way he presented himself. I mean, that's something, you know, changing a tire. How many times have you gone by and you've seen mama changing the tire and the little boy standing on the side? We tell him, "No, hey, how dare you? If you were strong enough to get up and go put some food on your plate, then mama cook. At least you got to get outside and help mama jack that tire. You can't think that it's okay as a man to sit in the car and let your mother change a tire." And guess what? The rescue isn't coming. One of our things is you are the rescue.
And y'all do a march too, right?
Yes,
Don't y'all
we do a 5-mile march. So we take them through the woods. There's a park down in Spotsylvania County. We take them through the woods. And we challenge them. You get on his back, carry him. Because if you're at home and there's a fire, guess what? You might have to carry your brother down.
So you're teaching them some real.
We teach them real
skills.
things. This year we took them. Actually went to Shannon Airport and we went flying. There are pilots out here who are willing to take these young men, and it's a program. And they actually took my son flew an airplane at age 13. He actually took the stick and flew. These are experiences that we just want to pour into these young men, because if we don't, who will?
Right.
That's amazing.
Good deals. Thank you
And-
for sharing.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
And so, I know for me, me and my partners, we have Elite Gentlemen. It's the Elite Gentleman. It's a nonprofit, and we're down a couple schools down in Spotsy. And what we do is we teach them financial literacy. We're teaching them how to tie ties. You know, we're teaching them some mechanical things. Teaching them about bullying. So we're doing some respect, character. So we're doing things like that. I think that's how we change the narrative. What you?
I believe that we change people's lives. There are two universal laws. God gave us two universal laws. The first one is to the world. It says, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." Follow that standard, and we would have all those things going on. And the second one is a higher standard to a Christian: love thy neighbor as thyself. When you teach the hows of how to do that,
Yeah.
Get out and do something.
Yes.
Get involved. Get out and do something. You know, there are a lot of children out there that don't have examples. Just you giving a kind word, you just giving a how you doing, or you're doing a great job. You know, as much as we say they don't listen to us, they're always trying to listen to you.
Yeah.
They really want to listen to
They're
you.
watching.
They're watching all the time. So just get involved. Do something.
Even if it's throwing a chicken box back in the window.
I like that.
So in closing, I think we've had some great dialogue. Again, this is just the beginning. You know, I believe that as long as we get involved, as long as we be proactive, as long as we have the rites of passage, as long as we have G3 community, as long as we have Elite Gentleman mentoring, because when you get into those schools at an early age, you know, you help them. You know, one of the things that I noticed is, and we didn't get into this discussion, we'll get into it later next week, is like you said, the fractured house.
Yeah.
We're gonna call it, you know, because I remember my mom and dad, they're still together, but that's not the normal anymore. That traditional husband wife in the family, that's not the normal for whatever reasons, whatever it is. So you have a lot of single parent households, and they may be missing certain elements of coming from a woman's perspective, coming from a man's perspective. And so I just think that more discussions, more community involvement, getting out there in front of it, and so they can see what a real man looks like. We have to show them our hurts. We have to show them our strengths, so that way when they come up with things that happen in their lives, they're able to take it in stride and continue moving forward.
with the battles and wars that come against you, individually and in your family, do you ever go into battle against them? In other words, you know, the Bible says, "Want to chase 1,000, two will chase 10,000." If my prayer doesn't press through the battle and give me the victory, then why do you ever call on Him? Or call on Him? Or call on Him? Because in unity, there's power.
Yeah.
It's multiplied 100,000 by each time I add somebody to that prayer. We need to go into battle against those things. Battle against saving your children. Battle against family, saving your family. Battle against the dispute that comes for you and your wife. Because a nation divided, a family divided against itself cannot stand, and that's the main weapon of the enemy. Divide and conquer.
Yep. And again, that's coming into another topic we're going to go into. But I just want to thank everybody for coming out today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank everybody for the dialogue. How we change it, these conversations. We're going to continue. We want to have some other guests on. We're always looking for sponsors. If somebody wants to sponsor some time, somebody wants to be on the show, reach out to us. You can always go to YouTube channel Edward Mosley, and find the actual shows. You can find me on Facebook at Edward E. Mosley Jr., or you can find me on Instagram at Limitless Bounds. Our co-host Jamie, he's not here today. He's on military orders, but you can find him on Facebook as Jamie Whiting, or you can find him on IG as AJ_Whiting_Inc. But Great discussions. I'm glad everybody had the opportunity to come out to see what Backyard Discussions is about. Next show topics. Single fathers and the positive impact they're having. Single fathers and the positive impacts they're having. And that man stepped up. So you may not have made the child, but you stepped up. So single fathers showing positive impact, and the man has stepped up. And so
Gentlemen,
it's been
my
great.
wife is calling me. I
It's
gotta
been
step
great.
off.
Oh yeah, and we are good to go, and we're done.
This is amazing.
Peace, everybody. See you next time.
I did that so she can see.